I was born Linda Walsh, and I am a fifth-generation resident of Baysville. Um, my mom's side, which were the Kelly family, immigrated here in the 1800s, and most of them stayed around for most of their lives. I was very fortunate to grow up surrounded with aunts and uncles and both sets of grandparents. My grandparents on my dad's side, John and Jessie Walsh, actually ran a resort, Riverview Resort, here on this property that we're standing on in Gristmill Park. And my parents, Barry and Joan Walsh, built their first house here. So I grew up in this area to begin with, and we stayed in Baysville most of our life. I grew up with 7 siblings, including myself. Sadly, one has passed away, and 4 of those siblings still live here in Baysville. We all attended the Baysville Public School, and that closed around, I believe, 1965. It was a 2-room school. Every row was a grade, so one teacher had 4 grades on each side, and the young kids would help the older kids. We had so many activities around that school, fall fairs. We had youth group activities that went on in the Anglican Church Hall. We had fairs come into town with rides and the whole thing. We had clean up the town days and track and field days, and we had a band, a school band. They would bus them out to Bracebridge to march in the parades out there. So there were many activities that we grew up with, as well. With the large families we had here, we had our own hockey teams and baseball teams. We could gather outside and form a game on a moment's notice because there were so many of us, and we were outside all the time. So I grew up with this sense of this large community, not just with relatives, but all of the children and their families were just like family members to me, and it was just a lot of fun. So when I grew up here, it was not common to go out of Baysville to do any shopping. My parents and grandparents did all their shopping at the local stores here. The only time we really had a need to leave town was if you had to be hospitalized. We had a drugstore here, we had doctors here, and then when travel became a little bit more prevalent, then people started going out to town a little bit more. So I met my husband in Midland, and we settled here in 1975, and we've been here ever since in the same home on Langford Road. We had 2 children, which makes them 6th generation, although they sadly don't live here currently. But I then was very fortunate to land a job at our local library, and that was the highlight of my life. I met so many fantastic people there. It is truly the hub of the town, and if you are new to town and you want to meet people and get involved, go to the library, because we have so many activities there. But we do have some lovely shops here. Our brewery, which is new in the last few years, a lovely bakery and some restaurants. So in 2018, I retired, and the library is still running amazingly well with under the direction of Lizanne Brunskill and her staff. And so I just encourage everybody to go over there and meet them and join the library. We also are active members in the curling club here. We've been curlers for probably 35 years. Again, an amazing place. You meet wonderful people, and it helps you put in the winters. I also, there's exercise classes. My husband goes to hockey. There's just a wealth of activities to get involved in if you wish in this community, which I love, and I truly would never want to live anywhere else.
Good afternoon. My name's Dan McCormack, and I'm a descendant of Rona and Gordon McCormack, who came to Baysville, I guess it was 1942. My dad, Gordon McCormack, worked for Eaton's of College Street in Toronto in the hardware department, and it was his life's dream to have a general store. And one day, one of his regular customers came into the store and said, "Gordon, I know of a general store for sale in a place called Baysville." He looked into it a little bit further and he made the trek to Baysville. And I guess within the first couple of minutes of seeing the store and the village, he decided that this was his life's dream, staring him in the face. Gordon came to Baysville first, worked with the previous owner who showed him the ropes and introduced him to everyone around town and so forth, and then ultimately Rona, David, and Ruth moved to Baysville to join Gordon and ran the general store. So Baysville really was in boom time all through the 50s, and speaking about my family in particular, then the general store was thriving, and out of the general store, one of the many things that my dad sold were Lakecraft wooden boats and Evinrude outboard motors. And sometime, I think it was around 1957, there was another outboard motor company, Mercury Outboards, that my dad caught wind of, and he thought that perhaps it'd be a good idea if he took on that franchise. And our friendly competitors, Cal and Dolly Martin, had the marina beside Baysville Marine, which evolved out of McCormack's general store. They were an Evinrude dealer, so it only made sense to be selling a different brand. And from that time forward, McCormack's Baysville Marine occupied two of the several buildings at the foot of North Road and operated as Baysville Marine. My brother David was the master mechanic there, and my dad, Gordon, was the master salesman. And between the two of them, they built a substantial business, did very, very well. The marina was operated by McCormack's until 1977, and at which time it was sold to Wayne Tom, and has changed hands again since then, and is currently Huff's Baysville Marina. I believe my first real job was working at the marina as the dock boy. So when you would come into the marina to buy gas or whatever else you might want, I'd be the guy that you would encounter first. I'd be the guy catching your boat and tying you up and asking you, what could I do for you? One day a Mountie came into our store, and I was probably only about 7 or 8 years old, I suppose. And the Mountie was in full dress uniform, which you just rarely see today, but red serge. And I looked at this guy and I thought, I want to do that. So that's what I did. At age 19, I joined the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and I served with them for 26 years. At age 44, I had my fill of that and retired from the RCMP and came back to Baysville. I went off and joined the OPP in Bracebridge, and I worked for them for 4 years. During that time, I met my wife Karen, who's off camera. She's camera shy, but Karen and I have made our home where my mother used to live, on the Muskoka River just outside of Baysville. Having retired from the RCMP and the OPP, Karen and I started a business called McCormack's Cottage Maintenance, and provide service to the cottagers, anything that they need in terms of grass cutting or yard cleanup or cottage security. So I remained true to my roots as far as being in Baysville and providing service to the seasonal visitors, and that's something that I've always enjoyed. I know my parents did, and I do today.
My name is Glenn Maynard. I am the grandson of Bob Menzies. Bob and Eva came to Baysville in 1946 to to get in on the boom in tourism because the war was over and there was a lot more of that up here. So they bought the Lincoln Lodge, which was on the corner of Bridge and Bay Streets, and they ran that until I bought it. My grandfather passed away, and I bought it off my grandmother. My mother and I did in 1977, I believe it was. We ran it till '94. Family business. My sisters all worked there. My mom was a waitress there. Granddad was a chef, classically trained in England, and he cooked. He would go and find work in the winter at de Havilland or wherever it was. He worked at Avro, and the rest of the time he cooked at the lodge. They had two children, a boy and a girl. Betty, who was my mother, married Ross Maynard in 53, I think it was, and they had 4 kids, which is myself and my 3 sisters. The other child was a boy, and he was a pilot and a missionary who disappeared over Lake Winnipeg in the early 90s. So he had 4 children as well, and they're all over North America. But my family stayed here, where I'm here. My older sister lives 1 block over, and my younger sister, one of them, lives 2 blocks up the street. And the last one, the youngest one, lives in Sundridge, Kelly. Lincoln Lodge was, started in '67. Granddad put a big addition on so we could hold buffet dinners, and we did every Saturday and Sunday night in the summer till I sold it. The dinners were really popular. We used to get a couple hundred people on a busy weekend, so there was always something going on. The menu varied, but it was always in high demand. We used to have 3 sittings a night, so there were lots of people through the doors. I've been on the fire department now for 42 years. My grandfather at one time was the fire chief of Baysville, but that kind of situation is long gone. We're part of the Huntsville Fire Department now, and it's a much more, it's a larger and more official organization, shall we say. We're run under strict rules, as every department in Ontario is. We have an excellent complement here at this hall. We have 22 members, which is large for this area for sure, and very dedicated people. I mean, these guys get up all hours of the night and day and go and do their job, and they do it well. And I've always been very proud to be associated with that group of men and women. Lived here full time for 53 years. I've been coming here my entire life, but even after I sold my business, the lodge, I mean, my family's here, my roots are here. I went to work for Hammond Transportation out in Bracebridge. I've been there 28 years now, I guess. And it's just, Muskoka is the best place in the world, I think, to bring up kids and have a family. So we just stayed right here and did both. I have 2 children and 2 grandchildren, so it's been a good run.